Dude, we got it closed.
Great day.
Yeah, no, we got PacMed sold. It's pretty good.
Very good day.
Yeah, that was a tough one, advising them on their acquisition by Harris Health, but we got it done.
Okay, tough. For the viewers, we're going to explain why in this episode. We're going to take you through the top 3 priority points that we had in helping assist the company being sold, and then why we think it was tough at the end. So, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, the purchase price, if you remember when we first started it, they didn't realize that there was revenue from 2 affiliates of Pacific Medical. And of course, we got that included into the acquisition. Mm-hmm. And more importantly, we got the acquirer to pay them a multiple of revenue, which, you know, for a revenue cycle management company, that's interesting. That they were willing to pay that. So I felt, you know, the company got a great valuation, mm-hmm. but we had to make sure that that everybody understood what the assets were, which in their case really was their long-term contracts.
Yep.
And their customers. And
they've had a loyal customer base for
very loyal. Well, the company,
25 years.
Yeah, 25 years. Company had been around, managed to get through COVID, mm-hmm. which was challenging, as you could imagine. In the healthcare space. And so, you know, we got through that. And then, of course, as you know, the company acquiring them, because they were acquiring stock, so it was a stock deal, not an asset-based deal, they wanted covenant not to compete of the former shareholders. And, you know, not that it was really difficult, but the concern was 2 of the shareholders are young, they have families, they might want to go to work in that space. Mm-hmm. And, you know, basically the acquirer was asking for a 3-year non-compete.
Right.
So where we landed was we agreed to a non-solicitation, meaning they wouldn't solicitate customers away if they went to work for a competitor. So from my point of view, you know, getting the non-compete set up in a way where, again, if these 2 shareholders who were staying on got fired for or without cause, meaning they didn't do anything wrong, mm-hmm. then I wanted the covenant not to compete to go away. And we went back and forth on that. Like I said, they wanted 3 years, or they wanted it to be another 6 months after they left. And so that didn't work. So we eventually agreed that those 2 employees would agree to the non-solicitation, but the covenant not to compete would go away.
Which makes complete sense, in our opinion.
Yeah, well, I was happy about it because they're good people. And by the way, I should say the people at Harris Health were great to work with. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
it's a very buttoned up operation.
Very buttoned up, know what they're doing. And of course, you know, they're part of a much larger publicly traded company up in Canada, so who's made a lot of acquisitions, and this is my second run-in with these guys, or working with them, second time, and both times they've just been great to work with. So that was, you know, an issue. And then something in the U.S. that is typically used in a acquisition is what's called a working capital adjustment. Mm-hmm. And these guys call it an NTA, so it's net tangible assets. And what they want is that your net tangible assets are equal or over $1. So meaning they're not assuming any liabilities. And if the NTA is higher than $1, then that money goes back to the company. Mm-hmm. And
the shareholders.
To the shareholders, that's correct. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. But yeah, so it goes back to the shareholders, the selling shareholders. And usually it happens about 120 days after the close. You know, you do a calculation as of the close date. make sure nothing comes in, an old AP bill or whatever, accounts payable bill. And then the money's either returned to the shareholders if the NTA is positive. If it's negative, meaning it's not adequate to cover the liabilities, then there's an adjustment made in the purchase price. And the way they do that, Mike, is in this case, they did a holdback. And originally, they wanted a holdback of close to 20% of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to hold it back for 1 year. And we were able to knock that down in half. So that only 10% was held back, which I think is probably more commercially reasonable.
Yeah, it's about the market terms right now. For the viewer's sake, the reason that we wanted to knock that down, one, is it provides more upfront cash for the stockholders on the sale, and then two, the purchaser would essentially be getting a free loan for a year with that money. So we felt either it could be held in escrow and charging interest for the stockholders, or we limit the amount and then they get it back after half that time.
Yeah, so they'll receive another 10% of their purchase price in a year. They will also most likely, based on our calculations, probably receive another 5 to 8% of their purchase price on an NTA adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll come 120 days from today. We close today. I think the other thing that was interesting, just to touch on this particular acquisition, it is amazing to me how now everything is done electronically. Meaning, never met the lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
Got on virtual calls with the M&A team from Harris Health.
Mm-hmm.
Did meet our client, obviously, several times. But the closing was all done through signatures being held by the respective law firms.
Mm-hmm.
And once everybody agreed on everything, the sig pages were, and the money was wired. In the old days,
It makes me chuckle, yeah, because that's all I've known.
Yeah.
So walk us through 20 years ago how that would happen.
well, I tell you, old school would have been like, when I was at Panda Express or when we were doing the sand and gravel stuff, you'd walk into your law firm.
Mm-hmm.
And there would be just folder after folder after folder stacked and put in order of who needed, CEO has to sign this, CFO has to sign that. And of course, none of that today is done. And to be honest with you, I kind of like it the way it is now.
Yeah.
Versus back then, because if nothing else, we were probably killing a heck of a lot of trees.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Right.
Stacks of paper,
Yeah.
binders. I like now electronic signatures can kind of go in order.
They do.
It's released after first person signs, then second, and then the lawyers can swap, and it's all done like that.
Yeah. The big takeaway I got from this deal, because I've probably done, I don't know, we've probably done over the years at least 50 plus deals. But what was interesting to me is the number one thing that always happens is you gotta remember that every deal has 9 lives. You gotta stay patient.
Yeah.
If you remember, this deal was supposed to close on December 20th.
Mm-hmm.
And the day before we were closing, I get a call from the M&A team at Harris saying, we need to move it to January.
Mm-hmm.
And
That was almost a deal killer in the company's eyes.
no, the company thought that they weren't serious.
Mm-hmm.
And, it turns out that we're serious. They just had a lot of stuff going on.
End of the year.
Yeah, and what I liked, and I shared that with them, and this goes to reputational value, is I told our client that, look, I've done business with these guys before, and they keep their word. And when I called the M&A guy, I said, I gotta know, because my credibility's on the line. He said, look, I promise you, we'll close. And they did. And we didn't have to extend the LOI or anything. It was just kind of good faith on both sides. So my takeaway is, be persistent, understand that there's going to be hiccups along the way. I think the other thing is make sure you choose the right partner, because you might be able to get a couple more dollars with somebody else, but you might end up picking the wrong one, and the deal you thought you had, you don't have. It may not end up being good for your employees, and you might say, well, I don't care, I got my money already.
Right.
But in a lot of cases, there's these holdbacks or earnouts. You may end up having to take your company back someday, and it's happened, as you know, it's happened in many companies.
Yeah, that's where accountants can kind of come into play, scratch away at that holdback, even create more liabilities than what the holdback amount was, and they can come after you for that money at a later time, which would hurt really badly. One point I do want to bring up, so today is a Tuesday morning, it just closed. Yesterday being a federal holiday, Friday afternoon, about 3 o'clock I think it was, some language wanted to be changed at the very last minute, and it wasn't good for our client, but we were able to negotiate better terms for that. You want to step us through that?
Yeah, I mean, the plan was, and the agreement was, that the cash in the company would be distributed before close. And at the 11th hour, the business people on the M&A side wanted us to keep cash in.
A large amount.
Yeah, originally close to 400,000, and in the end we were able to get that cut way back. But then more importantly, get the language changed that, okay, fine, we'll leave the cash in there, but it's only can be used for pre-closing expenses. And if pre-closing expenses is below that, the rest of the cash then goes back. But all the other cash we were able to get distributed out, and we felt, I know we talked about it, we felt very strongly for our client that needed to stay that way. So obviously, a lot of times you might, and I say this to our audience, you might think you want to sell your business or do a large financing for a venture capital firm or something like that, and you want to do it without an advisor. I cannot emphasize, and I know it's probably a little self-serving, given that that's what we do, but get an advisor, and get a competent advisor, somebody that's done multiple transactions. Whatever they charge you for that service, if they're good and they know what they're doing, you will make up in the transaction.
A lot more. For example, we got our clients close to $1 million more in the end, and they're going to get a huge multiple on the fee that we charge to do this. So well worth it for them, and we help them in the end. Yeah.
No, I would not try to sell a company or finance it without a third-party advisor, right? Because they're going to know what's commercially reasonable. They're going to know who other buyers are out there, and they're going to put you in a better position to negotiate from a position of strength. So good job. Got that one done. On to the next one.